So we're on a series, and it is This Revolution Will Be Led by the Broken. And I love it. It's been a great series. I want to speak to you from the subject today, the places that you don't belong. The places that you don't belong. And so we're going to read our verse. We have, where's my Bible? I lost my Bible. Where's my Bible? My Bible? It's right there. Okay, are you ready? You've got on the screen. And it's going to be amazing. I'm going to start from a little bit before of what's in the screen. It's 1 Corinthians. We're going to go from verse 20. Are you ready? Yeah. You excited? Yeah. Okay. Just like to know you're with me, you know. We're in this together. Okay. Where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him. God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand signs, Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles, but to those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength. I want to speak to you about the places that you and I do not belong. You know what? Before I get into that, though, I've got to preface what we're hearing there. We've got to understand something about this. This is if you will, it is a currency exchange. It is a currency change. He's dealing with a new way of thinking of things, with a new way of doing things. He's basically bringing the two different worlds together, and he's saying, this is how the world does it, and it's not working. It doesn't work. This is how I do it. This is how it does work. This is what you should do. What the world does seems foolish to God, and what we do, what he does feels foolish to the world. But he's basically saying this foolishness will do more than that wisdom. And what seems strong here is weakness there, but that weakness will do more than this strength. We have to understand that because it's a different economy, okay? I've had friends that I've traveled with, they come from America, they come to Australia, and the first question they ask when they go to Australia is they say this, you don't take US dollars? And if you don't see a problem with that, we'll move on. You can't just go somewhere else that operates with a different currency and use what you use and expect everyone to get with it. You know what I mean? And sometimes what I think, we expect God to get with our agenda, even though he has structured this world to operate in a whole nother way. And the greatest thing we could do is get on what he has created and then work it and get what it has for us versus doing what we want to do. If we can understand that, we can get this message. If we can understand that, we can set ourselves up for a win. But before I get into that, I just feel, all right, I'm just going to give someone a word later. But if we get that, we got this, okay? Let's go. All right, so my trip to LA was pretty awesome. It was fun. Any moment where I've got Ords with me is amazing. And then I had Rivy with me. So cuteness was doubled, and it was amazing. But the first thing I wanted to do, because we had a nice car, one of the boys from church lent us his car, it was a Maserati, so I was like, whatever, it's kind of like my everyday car as well. Very similar, except mine has like chicken nuggets squashed into things, you know what I mean? Like sometimes in my car when you're like, why isn't the air conditioning working? It's that the vents are blocked with chicken nuggets. And you might go, oh, yeah, I know, gross. Trash. No, to children, that's not trash. That's saving it for later. It's rationing, because you look back and you're like, how are you still eating that? And that's why you don't get sick, I guess. Your immune system is incredible. So there's that difference. There's also the difference that mine's a Ford, but whatever, Ford built tough. It's amazing. But other than that, it was almost the same car. And since I had this car, I thought, let me just do things that I wouldn't usually do. You know what I mean? Because if you're dressed in ways that you don't dress, or you're doing something you don't, in cities, you just act different, right? I know. I've seen your Instagrams, okay? When you're in cities that you're not from, like when you're in New York all of a sudden, I see people posing on walls like, I don't even know if this wall's gonna hold me up, but I'm just gonna do it anyway. You see people in Chicago take photos like this. But then when they're in New York, they wear clothes you've never seen them wear, and they're like, because when you go places that you're not from, you act in ways you don't act. And so I thought, well, hey, I'm not from here, and they don't know I don't have money, so me and Ords, Rivy, get in our Maserati, someone else's Maserati, and we just go down Rodeo Drive, and I'm like driving. I drive so slow. I drove super slow. Lean my seat back a little bit more than I usually do. Odds too. People thought there was a drive-by going on. Rich people are like, these people don't know how to be rich. I can't help but be in that moment and feel like I don't belong, right? Because I obviously did not belong. There are people with more shopping bags from that street than we come away with groceries. You know what I mean? Like there was just bags everywhere. And it was just like, I just felt orcs. You ever felt that way? Like you don't belong? Like people know? Like my first time at church, I thought everybody knew what I did on the weekend. I swear, I was like praise and worship. I'm like, stop looking, stop. I know I'm a sinner, just leave me alone. When I was in church, I felt like I didn't belong. When I first became a youth pastor, I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I was sitting in a seat that I shouldn't be in. You ever felt like that? You ever felt like the church that you just showed up to, this one, you might not belong. The grow group you just signed up for, you don't belong. The workplace you just signed up for, you don't belong. The college course that you're in, you don't belong. The team you just made, you don't belong. We often feel like we don't belong. The problem is this, where we are is exactly where Jesus wants us. But the greatest weapon that the devil has is to take you out of where you belong and convince you that you are a stranger in a place that you weren't made for. But the reality is this, you and me, we got to inhabit the places that we don't belong. We got to get into the places that the world says we don't belong. I've had people look at me and go, you're not a pastor. I'm like, I am a pastor. They're like, you're not a pastor. I'm like, I am a pastor. Like, but you don't look like a pastor. You don't talk like a pastor. I'm like, okay, but I don't know what else to tell you, you know? To the point that when we started a church service out of a nightclub, no one came. And you gotta understand, this was before church started really moving and growing. So you don't know how frustrating that was for me. Because I'm like, only I spend money on marketing, telling the world that we've got a church, and people still don't believe I have one. That's more annoying than telling me you believe I have one, but you just don't want to come. I would rather you say, you know what, Chris, church is just not my thing. But when you tell me you don't have one. We had a guy come in to church and go, what is this place? I go, it's a club, but we're having church. He's like, no, you're not. At which point I blacked out a little. You know, I was like, pastoral instincts kicked up that I didn't know about, like laying hands. And I was like, okay. And he's like, no, but what do you do? I'm like, we hold church here. He's like, but who benefits? And he looked at me like that. I'm like, and then I didn't know how to answer. I got so deep. I was like, well, I guess, the soul, what are you saying? No, but what goes on? Like, is this the clubs or is this? I was like, I don't think you're going to get this. The world will tell us we don't belong in places. In fact, when I first got here, I was asking people in the Wicker Park neighborhood, what do you think about church? And you know what their number one gripe was? They were like this, I hate when church tries to be cool and they write music and have lights because the church shouldn't do that. Stop trying to be relevant. I'm like, wait. So the church has to stay in 1940, but everyone else can leave. The world, the devil sometimes, well, the devil mainly, and the world just doesn't understand it because of the way they've seen it. But quite often we're trying to be, the world or the devil would love to keep us in places that people can't see because apparently we, the church, don't belong in the places that God wants to take us. So people in this room might be made to feel like you don't belong in the job that you've been dreaming about. You don't belong in the happiness that you're hoping for in marriage. You don't belong in this church. You don't wear the right things. You don't belong. And I tell you what, it is a fallacy. It is a lie. It is not true. It is what the devil will try to do to you to keep you isolated, because while you are isolated, he is the only input that you get. And when he is your only input, he can restrict your output. And your output was made to connect with someone greater than what you alone experience or what the devil wants you to know. Your output is great. And here's the beauty. According to this new economy that we work through, this new economy that we now understand, is not about you. It's not about me. It's not about how good you are. It's not about how bad you are. We don't need more qualified people. We need more willing people. And if we're going to inhabit the places that we don't belong, we've got to shift our value system so we understand why we do belong. because you don't belong because you're tall enough. I mean, look at Jeff. I wanted to stand over here somewhere just to get the, like, if anyone took photos and put them on Instagram. By the way, if you take a photo, help me out. You know what I mean? If my eyes look like this, don't post it. Don't post it. If I'm mid-veins popping out, there's a bit of spit, don't post it. Don't post it. Or you know what I'm going to start doing? I'm going to start walking around in worship when you're in your moment. Just don't post it. You're not helping anyone. No one wants to come to a church when I look like that. Okay. But it's not how tall you are. It's not how good you are. It's not how eloquent you are. And the problem is that we base our values for success out of what this world values for success. But Jesus gives us a new model. God gives us a new model there in Corinthians that we then see that it's not about being the strongest in the room. It's not about being the most eloquent in the room. It's about being the person that can lean on God the most in the room. And it's not about how skilled you are, but it is what is on you that makes the greatest difference. If God is on you, then the ordinary becomes extraordinary. When God is on you, things shift. And I think we need to become, as preachers, as worship leaders, as people, we need to become people that are less aware of our look and more aware of our substance and more aware of what we're bringing. Instead of bringing eloquence and well technically formed messages, we got to bring something that comes out of what we've experienced with God, because when He is on us, the world can feel it. The world doesn't need more actors. The world doesn't need more people that feel like they know what the answer is. The world needs more of someone that looks and feels like Jesus did. They need someone that when they go out to somewhere, when they feel them next to them, they don't feel judged, they feel loved, they feel grace, they feel acceptance. Somebody who knows God well enough to explain Him in such a way that does justice to who He is. And that's never gonna come if we live with the mentality that we've got to get better and step our way to God and step our way out of our things, because right there, the relationship is fundamentally broken. We've got to live for God in such a way where we understand He draws close to us irrespective of what we find ourselves in. So therefore, what God has created you for is not contingent on how well developed you are, but how willing you are to let Him be the person that is close enough to you to help you stand up when you can't stand yourself. My point number one is simply this: you need to own your platform. Own your platform. And man, the amount of people that are frustrated with their season and their platform because they're just like, I want something else. You ever feel that? Like, man, if I had that, then I'd be influential. If I was there, then I'd be influential. But you know what you got to understand? Is that where God has you is where He wants you. Secondly, what we got to understand is that your calling is not a destination, it's a lifestyle. You know what I mean? Your calling is a lifestyle. Like, there's a lot of lifestyle bloggers out there. Be a lifestyle person that lives your calling. Like, your calling is not something you'll get to. Your calling is something you get to do daily. So that means that your sphere of influence might be smaller right now, and you might know that your dream and your calling in its complexity and its I guess big picture might be spheres of influence. But here's the thing: if you can't manage this, how will you ever lead that? And you know what we always do? We don't see our platform. Chris, I don't have a platform. Chris, I don't even have one. Chris, I'm a stay-at-home mom with 3 children. I do school drop-off. That's all I do. Own your platform. Your platform might not look like this one. It might not be as physical as this one. But I'll tell you this, every season comes with a platform. Every moment comes with a platform. Every day comes with a platform. Well, Chris, I don't believe that. Like, what's the platform for me doing school drop-offs, dropping the kids off at, where? Well, let me tell you where the platform is. The platform is, when I'm part of the LSC at one of the schools around here. Don't even ask why. I just am. And it's riveting stuff that goes on in that meeting. I'm there, and there was a moment where they're talking about a man who took his life, and you know, it's tragic all the time, right? You feel it, you know. Yeah, but if you don't know them, it doesn't hit you. You know what I'm saying? But you know it's tragic. But they kept talking about it. It got to the point where I was like, okay, so who are we talking about? Who was it? So they go, you know, our friend, the man. He used to work for the alderman's office. He used to come in, pick up his grandchildren. Right then I connected with it and it hit. Like it just hit. I remember wrecked for the rest of the meeting and for the rest of the day. I just was like, man. And it hit me because I used to talk with him. I used to walk with him. We used to walk together. He'd get his grandchildren. I'd get my boys. I mean, this is someone that is real. And all I could think in that moment was, did I appreciate? Did I live? Did I love? Did I lead from my platform? Did I see my stage? Did I see that although it might not have been what I was typically used to, that is a stage for me. It is a stage for you. The same people that show up here on a Sunday are the same people that you'll find on a Monday. The same people that you lead worship, for are the same people that you encounter at your work, in your neighborhood. And until we realize that God has called every single one of us to have a platform, we'll never step to it. And if you can't step to it, you can't utilize it. If you can't see it, you can't speak from it. We've got to know that you and we've got a platform, and it doesn't come out of greatness. It's not built on skill set. It's not built on audience. It's built on an understanding that my platform is wherever I am, whenever I'm there, God is going to use me to do something great. What would happen if you and me stepped into every moment like this is the moment? This is the moment that God spoke to me about. This is the moment that I remember God saving me for. This is the moment that depression left me for. And it's not the grand, it's not the greatness, it's not the thousands by negating the one. You have a platform. I have a platform. This is just my Sunday platform. But my Monday has platforms all day, every day. My Sunday has platforms right in front of me. Some platforms walk by me quicker. Others walk by slower. I wonder how many of those platforms I miss by looking at someone else's platform. Oh man, he's so influential. Man, he speaks like this. Man, she's got that position that I want. Man, he's just got the title. Man, he's just such an outspoken person. If I was outspoken, I'd tell the world. Live from your platform. Own your platform. Because when you own your platform, number 2 is this: God will reveal your audience. When you own your platform, God will reveal your audience. Chris, what is it that I'm made for? Chris, I don't see anything. It's so mundane, my everyday. Great things are the culmination of average days done well. The devil wants us to snooze and hit sleep till we arrive at our platform. But God knows that he made us. He sewed us together with purpose. And here's the greatness about it. In the midst of your darkest storm, in the midst of your messiest season, God can still use you in that moment. You don't need to be better. You need to be willing. You need to be open. You need to embrace your platform and realize that in the midst of your platform, God will reveal your audience. When you can own that God has put you together with purpose, that God has made you someone that can lean on him in the midst of what seems weak, in the midst of what seems like you don't have it all together. His weakness is stronger than your strength. But Chris, it doesn't make sense on paper. His wisdom, his foolishness is wiser than your wisdom. See, when we start to own our platform, we own it enough and pick up our heads long enough to speak to our audience. You know, when I first started preaching, I was so nervous. I was so nervous. My message lasted 5 minutes. You know how daunting it is? It's not like boxing. No one throws in a towel. You know what I mean? No one's like, let him go, let him go. There's still 35 minutes to fill. No, the church just looked at me. My senior pastor just looked at me. I'm like, save me. Save me. He wouldn't save me. I looked at the worship leader. Save me. Save me. Get that guitar. Do whatever you do. Let's worship. Let's lead. Holy Spirit, save me. Rapture, save me. Just save me, someone. Got so bad I started calling for my mum. You know it's bad if you just say mum. Save me. I was just stuck. You know that in that moment, I couldn't see faces. Everyone just blended into one. The Bible went from having words to being like symbols. Like it says here that, in the book of Abraham, everything closed in. You know where it came out of? I never owned my platform. because I never felt like I was good enough for it. And I didn't feel like I belonged on it. I didn't belong there. I was out of place. And the devil was good at reminding me of it. How's a man that has done going to be here? Remember, Chris, you can't even speak in a crowd of 3. Remember what your parents said about, remember, do you remember? Hold on, let me get this. He tries to check you before you get into what God has for you. But when you first own your platform, the visibility of the audience becomes real clear. And you can speak to what you see. You can speak to what's in front of you. You can speak to the ones that God has brought to you. And I've got to encourage you, you've got a platform and you have an audience. And more people are looking at your life than you even realize. More people are gleaning from you than you could ever understand. And the beauty is this, the more you lean on what is not right about you, the more they see what is right about Him. You become a better reflector of Jesus when you embrace your brokenness than you'll ever be when you put a front of wholeness, when you put a front of having it together. The more you realize you don't understand, the more you're equipped to actually run and do something that'll last a lifetime. We've got to realize that the moment we embrace this platform is the moment that God will reveal our audience. And when you can embrace that audience and start speaking to the people in front of you, start speaking to the people that are there, start loving the people that are there, start forgiving the people that are there. I mean, hopefully you and I would grow in forgiveness, grow in grace, grow in love, grow in influence. And the way we do that is by embracing the platforms that we have, letting God reveal the audience that are in front of us. And my last thing is simply this. You got to lose your loyalty to yesterday. Man, we can be loyal, right? We are so loyal to yesterday. We remember our titles. We remember our mistakes. We remember what we came from. Like, we always have statements that are very defining statements. Like, I'm the kind of person that is. It's a very limiting statement if you think about it. Constantly defining yourself in definitives rather than defining yourself in the terms of growth. I'm moving. I'm growing. I'm not the most confident, but I'm getting there. I'm getting better at that. You know how that comes? By not being so loyal to yesterday that you cheat on today. So loyal to yesterday that you end up cheating on the opportunities that God is bringing today. You don't follow them, you don't marry them, you don't do what God's calling you to do with them. In fact, you live to the loyalty of what your parents said about you, what your school teacher said about you, what your past said about you, what your losses say about you. And we grow so loyal to yesterday that we forget to do something with today. The problem is that when you're loyal to yesterday, you miss the opportunities that God's bringing today. And before you know it, you've got nothing to live for tomorrow. We've got to embrace that tomorrow is a new day. His mercies are new for a reason, because they were outdated the moment the clock turned over to the new day. His mercy was outdated. His grace is new every day. You got to understand this. Don't live off yesterday's meals. When you ever been in college? Everyone in this nation's been in college. Everyone. Don't not go to college in this country. When you're in college, I feel like you kind of, you have a like squirrel approach to food. When you're in front of it, you don't know when you're going to be back in front of it. You know what I mean? So you do things that you would never do anywhere else. You'll stockpile. You leave anticipating your next meal. You know what I mean? Like you're full now, but you're like, I thought you weren't hungry. It's for tomorrow. Sometimes you don't have plates, you'll utilize your coat. What's wrong with you? Shut up, I'm in college, all right? Stockpile, because what if I don't have enough tomorrow? If you live your life wondering if you're going to have enough energy, enough mentality, enough skill, enough grace, enough strength, enough forgiveness for tomorrow, then you've missed it. Because God gives you a new dose every single day. And the moment you start stockpiling yesterday's revelation, yesterday's grace, yesterday's forgiveness, yesterday's things, and trying to bring them into tomorrow because you're not sure if there's enough, you've missed it. Don't stockpile what God is ready to give you in a new means of abundance. You got to understand God's got a plan for you, and it's bigger than what you could ever anticipate. Don't be so loyal to yesterday that you allow yesterday to call the shots of today. I would go, but I've always failed when I've done that. I would step up, but I always seem to crumble. Get good. at letting go of your defeats. Honestly, I feel for us as a church, it's a season of shaking the dust of our feet. For years, we've been planting and pushing and breaking ground in this church, but it's a new day. It's a day where we're no longer just breaking ground, we're taking ground. And if we live with the dust on our feet of breaking ground, we'll live out of season in the season that God has for us. See, part of embracing your stage is embrace your stage. Where you're at, He has you there for a reason. Where you're at, He'll use you there beyond your measure, beyond what you could ever imagine. You got to understand that when you can let go of yesterday and stop being defined by your mistakes, stop being defined by, here's a big one, don't be defined by your themes. It's one thing to be defined by a mistake. It's another thing to be defined by the pattern in your life. I try to say that American because no one ever knows what I'm saying when I say that word. Pattern. Yeah, no, that was a decent point then. Okay. I didn't know what he was talking about. Pattern. But for real, the devil's good at highlighting patterns. He'll look at them and he'll go, hey, if you look, this never turns out for you. If you look, you've always been hurt in environments like this. If you look, you always get rejected eventually. The thing is, if you come in with loyalty to yesterday's rejection, you'll find an opportunity to be rejected today. So now your current patterns project your future themes. Don't live with loyalty to yesterday. Live with loyalty to today. Live with loyalty to your future. Live understanding that God's got a plan for you and it's bigger than you could ever ask, seek, or imagine. God has called you for such a time as this. And this revolution will be led by the broken. And that's you and me. We don't need to have it all together. We don't need that. And by the way, there needs to be a revolution because this cannot be the best kept secret in the world. Yes, we have 20,000 that listen to us a month on our podcast, but we need to get that to 40. We need to get the people that are in this city to understand that this is where it's at and that there is hope here, that there is a future here. And the only way they get that is when this is not confined to this, but this walks out the building and is still this on Monday, is still this on Tuesday, is still this at your job, and it's still this in your neighborhood, because this is a substance that we all share. It's a spirit that we all have, not something that I carry. We're called to change the world, and this revolution is needed, and this revolution will be led by the broken. Own the places that you feel you don't belong. If culture tells you you don't belong somewhere, own it. If prejudice tells you you don't belong somewhere, own that moment. You own that sphere. You get where God has called you. I don't care what the world tells you. I don't care what everything else is telling you. You belong. You belong just where God places you, and you stand there with boldness. You stand there with what God's called you to do. We change this city and then the next city and the next, and it might seem foolish and crazy as an endeavor, but I would rather choke on greatness than chew on mediocrity. We've got a calling, each and every one of us, and it's not contingent on having it together. It's contingent on trusting God in deeper levels, because we do belong in the places that don't make sense. Can I get an amen? Amen.